Hello and welcome everyone to our session today in CCOF. This is our last session for the year, so we've got the right guest for you to end the year on a high. We'd like to welcome our main speaker for the day, Saumil Majmudhar. Uh, he is the co-founder, CEO, and managing director of Sportsvillage, formerly known as EduSports, India's leading youth sports organization that aims to get 100 million children experience the magic of play and sports. Now, he's a core committee member of CII and he works towards an inclusive and fun-based approach to sports at various forums, including school boards, parent forums, federations, brands, ministries, and at regulatory bodies. Now, interestingly, Saumil has represented EduSports, India's leading social activism platform, on the television series Satyameva Jayate, on the sports episode with Amir Khan. He's also received the CII Emerging Entrepreneur Award and has been recognized as one of the top 50 leaders influencing education by Education World. He is a IIT Madras alum IIT Bombay alum, and he holds a PhD
Yeah.
IIM Bangalore. Sorry, I know.
Well tried, MD.
What's interesting is he holds a basic mountaineering degree from the Nehru Institute of Mountaineering, and he's also a black belt in karate. So we certainly have a man of all spectrums covered today as a speaker. So welcome, Saumil.
Thank you, Ranil.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce our host for today as well, MD, who is the founder of this forum. Now, he is an alum of IIT Madras and Michigan State University and Stanford Business School as well. He's been an industry veteran for the last 32 years and an entrepreneur for the last 18 years. He was one of the first managing directors for Dell International Services in India, and he's a pioneer in the contact center industry for the country. Currently, he's a mentor to many startups and a passionate customer experience advocate. So with that, over to you, MD, for this exciting session.
Thank you, Ranil, for that introduction. And thank you for trying to kind of put IIT Madras in the forefront as well. Saumil was paying great attention to that.
Yeah.
Saumil, welcome. I know you just returned from Sandakpur, and thank you for making it. And you're not in Bangalore either. You're in Hyderabad in a hotel room. So thank you for making the time. It's really wonderful to have you.
It's a pleasure. So always good to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah, let's start right at the beginning. Sportsvillage. What's it all about, Saumil? For the benefit of everybody, listening in here.
So Sportsvillage is trying to do something very simple. We're just trying to get kids to play.
Okay.
As simple as that. But also try to build a good, valuable business while we do it. So it's two legs: get kids to play and build a good business, which means it's everything that it's not a charity. It's not meant to go out. It has to sustain itself. So that's the two things that we're doing. And it's now been 18 years. I started this in 2003 along with others. And long story short, we found a few models by which we could indeed get kids to play and build a sustainable, scalable, and hopefully valuable business over the years.
So let me be a little provocative over here. Kids love to play. Do we really need to get them to play? I mean, I just play with kids, but every evening I go play football, soccer with a bunch of kids. Every evening they are out there. So is it that difficult to get kids to play?
No, it's a great question. And for me also, I mean, given, I used to have a tech venture earlier and so on. And I was kind of thinking of what to do next after my previous venture didn't really work out. And I was thinking of something in tech. And this friend of mine with whom I was bouncing ideas, after we bounced a few ideas on the whiteboard and nothing really excited us. This is 2003, Jaishankar, and his son Siddharth then was 6 years old. Now he's graduated from IIT Kanpur, by the way, just to put this in perspective.
See, wow.
Time flies, right? So yes. Jay said, hey, generally, and I used to play a lot. I still do. I used to play then, but I didn't have kids at time. And Jay said, I'm really worried my son doesn't play enough. And I was like, okay, why doesn't he play? He said, Jaga hi nahi hai. What do you mean Jaga nahi hai? He said, look around you. I mean, outside my house is a road. Playgrounds are not safe. There's probably stuff. The grounds are not safe. There's, dump yards. So turns out that when you look at it from a child's eyes, unlike an adult can drive to a place, adult can buy membership, adult can rent a place. A child, on the other hand, needs to have play spaces which are accessible from the home, which is ideally a few minutes walk. And that also maybe not, because depending on parents' comfort, people are not comfortable letting their kids walk to a neighborhood and so on. So from a child's perspective, the actual radius in which the playground has to be there is a very small radius.
Correct.
First of all, one. Second, it also needs other kids to show up at the same time. So there is a accessibility problem. There's an aggregation problem, right? And that which I found out was far more endemic than I expected it. And we said, oh, I thought that should be an interesting problem to solve. I was a sports secretary in IIT Bombay. I was a sports secretary, sports counselor, and all that. I said, what the hell? This might be a good way to solve a problem and build a business and have fun. So it is a problem. Yes, it is a big problem.
So how are you solving the problem? I mean, you're not going to find playgrounds near people's homes.
Yeah.
If there was, they would have found it anyway. Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, when we started out in 2003, like most entrepreneurs do, we had this audacious vision that we'll have a sports village in every zip code of the country. That, of course, didn't happen. In case you haven't seen one near your house, that didn't happen. But so long story short, we tried different models. We had our own grounds. We thought we'll partner with governments, private complexes, schools for after-school play venues. 2003 to 2006, that didn't work. Then we thought we'll get money from corporates to get kids to play intercorporate just to stay alive partly. Then we tried to build an app in 2007-8. Then we tried to sell tickets for the Cricket World Cup. We tried to do everything in sports to stay alive partly. But the model that we found, which kind of partly serendipity, honestly, and not strategy, was the school model, where we knocked on the school door, and that became edu sports. That sports are a part of education. This happened after 5 years of experimentation. 2003, 2008, we tried all the stuff. And we said, let's go to schools and say, schools solve the problem of aggregation. Kids of the same age, broadly, socioeconomic category come together. Schools solve the problem of synchronization, which is the same height to weight. Broadly, kids come out to play in the PE period at the same time. Schools solve the problem of time, which is the PE period, right? And they solve the problem of monetization.
And perhaps after school as well. Possible.
I'll come to that. Yeah. And monetization, because they collect fees. And if I can convince the school to say, hey, give me a small part of what you're charging from parents and I'll improve the sports program, maybe I have a business. And that's what EduSports became. To your point on the after school program, yes, in theory. And when I say in theory, is because you'll find across the country and across the world, actually, between 3 to 8% of kids who go to a school stay back for after school. Which means if 1,000 kids school, you'll only have 70, 80 kids at best. So the question is, what do remaining 920 kids get?
Right.
And most inter-school tournaments would also cater to a school team. People like you might be in those school teams, but I'm kids. The remaining 950 kids are not getting anything because most school sports program were focused on the school team. So we went in and said, let's make sports a part of education. So the big shift we did, which made the fundamental difference, was to not say sports as it's good for you, personality, and all those nice things, which are very hand-wavy stuff. We went and said sports is part of education, one, and therefore PE period, let's improve the PE period. And the way to improve the PE period is to make it inclusive. All kids should get covered, not only the top 5 kids in this class, age appropriate, structured, and so on. And then the biggest shift we made was to make it fitness and not about sport. We said and we assessed each child, we showed improvement of each child. And that was the big innovation, if you will. Partly it's almost social engineering, right? You're trying to figure out who wants what and present something.
So was that fitness thing, presenting it as an improvement in fitness, was it the message to the parents or to the principal, the school principal?
Good question. So the program, first of all, the 3 people I need to keep happy. One, of course, is the child. The child doesn't love it, then I'm in trouble. But the good thing about sports is children want it. I'm not giving math or science which most children might not want, right? That's a good part. To the parent, it was fitness. For child, it's a sports program. For the parent, the assessment is fitness. The program is sports and fun and play. The assessment is fitness. And for the school, it was part of education. That as much as you have a mathematically fit child, you need to have a physically fit child. As much as you assess all 35, 40 children in math and put a normal curve and say, okay, year on year, we need to move. Similarly, with our data, we'll give you a normal curve and we'll tell you how we are correcting the top for academies and school teams and the bottom to come this way and so on. Pretty much we copied whatever education was supposed to be doing as structure and brought it into sports.
Yeah, so who does it? I mean, all schools have a PE teacher as well, right? He or she gets involved, or you bring in your people. So operationally, how does it work? Because you need to, I mean, besides the child, the principal, and the parent, you need to get the PE teacher on board.
So that's an interesting, and it's kind of coincidence that I'm in Hyderabad, because a very interesting anecdote happened. When we started out, like all tech, whatever entrepreneurs, I thought I have a scalable model where I'll train the PE teachers. I'll get some data, I'll do some analysis, and I'll be the 5 of us will be getting some million kids to play, was my grand vision. Okay. Now, like with all grand visions, the market doesn't care about that. So we went and started pitching. I remember I was in Hyderabad in a hot May afternoon, and this Aparna ma'am met me at like 2:33 after lots of waitings and so on. Finally, she said, Mr. Saumil, we decided to go ahead with the program. I was like, very good. It was like probably first or second school we're signing up, okay, or third school. And she said, okay, but who are you going to send? And this is a school which had like 5,000 kids or 3,000 kids. They had like 10 PE teachers. And I'm sitting across the table expecting a first deal from a customer. And she's like, who are you going to send? I said, what do you mean, who am I going to send? You have PE teachers, I'll train them. MD, this was, I get goosebumps when I remember that. She looked me in the eye and said, Mr. Saumil, I like what you're doing. I hope you succeed. But if you don't send your own staff to implement your program, I can assure you that your curriculum books are going to gather dust in my library. Next year, when management asks me about the program, I'll say, sorry, it didn't work and do not renew. In that instant, I morphed from a technology consulting scalable business to a full stack, as they call it, service delivery, non-scalable, that I will send PE teachers to your school. I had no clue where to hire PE teachers from. I had no clue how to train them. I had no idea. We went there. So we ended up then supplying our own trainers who were coached in our philosophy.
And what would happen to the PE teachers? They'll just sit around and watch?
Yeah, there's a good question again. See, most schools were underinvested in sports, MD. And what I mean by that is, if they were supposed to have 4 PE teachers, they would probably have 2. And the way they would get by with under configuration, under investment is by doing a PE class the way most of us remember it, which is either nothing happens.
You just go out and play.
Yeah, exactly. Or the coach gives you a ball or a bat and says, go out and play. Right now, imagine that happened in math. Right? The math teacher came and said, oh, yeah, go out and learn math. That's not the way math works. Or they passed around Shakespeare and said, okay, here's English for you. Some kids will get it, but 95% of kids will be like, what the hell? English is not for me. And that is what was happening or still is happening in sport, that kids are not being given the experience and exposure to sport. They're not being taught sport. They are being exposed to sport. Naturally, talented kids pick it up. 95% of kids who are not talented say sport is not for me.
Yeah.
Right? It's like kids saying math is not for me because they just got a math textbook and they're like, what the hell? What the hell is this? So the difference between coaching and teaching. Coaching assumes motivation of the person being coached.
Correct.
Teaching requires you to motivate the person being taught. Most of the people in the school system were thinking of themselves as coaches because they were thinking of school team medal winning. Because the trustee would also assess them on, did your school team win a medal?
Yeah.
So they would only look at the top 2% and not care the rest. We went and said, look, unless you get the teachers here. We need teachers and not coaches for all kids to play.
Right. And I would think that most kids will, in general, be motivated to play. I mean, that's a nice break from studies. I mean, I would be very surprised if there were even like 2% of kids who don't want to play.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. They're motivated to play. The problem that happens is they're motivated and they go out and then they have a negative sports experience. Which means, let's say you don't have the fitness to play. You don't have the skills to play. You don't know the rules of, let's say, basketball and what is traveling, or I am not an expert, but I've heard some of these rules. Now, if you don't know that, the experience sucks. Somebody has to say, hang on, this is how you do it, right? You need the teacher.
Yeah.
And that was missing.
Interesting. This is a chief customer officer forum. So who's your customer in this? Is it the kid?
Wonderful, wonderful. My consumer is a child. My, let's say, intermediary, if you will, is a school who actually pays my bills, but the parent is finally my customer. Right? So to my parent, I had to say, look, your child has experienced this program like this. These are lesson plans. Here's the fitness improvement. Here's what you can do at home. Here's how I can improve them better, and so on and so forth.
And what kind of socioeconomic profiles do you target? I mean, in other words, which kind of schools do you get into?
Well, we first, of course, thought the whole world would line up outside our office to sign up. That didn't happen, like with most things. But long story short, we found a sweet spot to be the upper middle class CBSE schools, DPS kind of schools as our sweet spot, where we think there's the parents who understand the value of education, but also understand the value of holistic all-round education. They don't want a pure academic grind. They don't want completely no rigor, do what you want.
Yeah.
They want that balance. And that's really where we fit in.
Yeah. I what about, CBSE and ICSE boards? They have no emphasis on sport, or is that, I mean, it must be there somewhere, isn't it?
No, it's a good question. I think the issue has never been policy. Implementation.
Yeah.
So CBSE has it, NEP has it. I mean, you name it. I mean, I don't think that's the issue. The issue has been how did it get implemented, and who carries that can of saying, okay, if it doesn't get implemented, what happens? Who does it? And to that extent, I think, and while schools are one stakeholder, we also found budget from brands and CSR and government. We'll talk about that, I guess, sometime. But I think the key question, MD, was, to your point of who's the customer, who is my consumer's voice as far as kids as a consumer and them not getting to play. The reality is adult society, the way it's configured, actually the kids have no voice around play. Think about it. The kids don't decide where they live, most cases. Kids don't decide whether they can go out and, go somewhere and play. Parents decide. Kids don't decide budget. They don't have money. The entire play experience is completely adult controlled.
Right.
There's no sense of, think about that, right? There's no voice.
Yeah.
So if your PE teacher is horrible, what do you as a kids do? You have no voice. Sometimes you don't even know what to say, right? You think this is the way PE teachers are. I mean, all of us grew up that way, right? We thought this is the way PE is supposed to be, right?
Yeah. So the members of this forum are very familiar with, capturing voice of the customer, doing surveys and all. So how do you do that? I mean, you survey the parents, but treat the kids as the customers?
That's a good question. So what we do, I mean, for us, the biggest thing is the fun in the class, in the playground. And when I say fun, it's important to break that down, right? Fun is not about laughing. You said you do marathons, you done Kilimanjaro and all that. You probably were not laughing when you did that tough marathon or Kilimanjaro, right? But it was fun. So fun doesn't mean we are all laughing and partying. And one of our advisors helped us with definition of this very nicely. Fun is when three things happen. And I'm saying this in the context of my consumer, the child, having fun. Fun is one, when you are fully involved in what you're doing. Two, when you're engaged with the people group you're doing it, you're not being left out, you're not being, shunned. And three is when you're being pushed just above your limits. Too much is not fun, too little is boring. When these three things happen, is when you have fun. It's not about laughing, partying, and so on. So in my class, in my PE class, in our reduced sports class, program class, how do you make sure that kids have fun? You do it by making sure the activity is age appropriate. The program is inclusive. It's structured so that all kids are covered, no kids are left out. The trainer is trained to make sure that all kids are engaged as against only focusing on a good kid. So the bunch of stuff that we bring in uh, to get the fun element going. So voice of customer at one level every day, the kids running towards our trainers is the voice of the customer. The good part is that you almost viscerally feel it every day. The problem has been that my consumer who experiences the magic of the programs that we do has no way to communicate to my customers or my other stakeholders that this is good.
Yeah.
They don't have the vocabulary actually, right? Think about it. How does a child, like as a kid, how do you know that your math teacher is good? You have no comparison. This is the math teacher.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't know it. We hopefully got a good teacher.
But I suppose you can capture the fact that they are having fun and perhaps communicate that and all that good stuff, right?
That's exactly what we do, and that very often is easy to communicate. But what we found, MD, was the maybe consumer customer distinction, I guess. The stakeholders or other decision makers around kids, for them, fun is not good enough. They want numbers, they want impact, they want data. So we've always been very clear the data that we are providing about all our annual assessment surveys and impact and coverage is for the kids, adults happy. Yeah. Kids don't want it. Kids just want to play.
So what can, by the way, I just want to let people know, those who are watching, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A box, not the chat box. Please post them in Q&A. I'll take a look at it and ask Saumil these questions. Yeah. So what data do you provide the stakeholders, the school and the parents?
Yeah. Broadly, I mean, like with any other place, transparency and accountability. Transparency saying we were supposed to do this curriculum. So we first of all made a curriculum from nursery 10th standard, build lesson plans for each class, each 35-minute class, saying this is what you're going to do. And if you like us, this is what we're going to do. And if you this is fine, then let's have a contract. Otherwise, we don't have a contract. It's pretty much very well structured. So we have lesson plans, which fits into P timetable. So we have a reporting mechanism through an app where we say, okay, we indeed did do this, but by the way, we lost 3 days for rain. By the way, your math teacher took 1 class away from us. So there's a transparency piece saying, hey, you paid us for X classes, and this is what happened. Did we do? Transparency.
Yeah.
Accountability is, okay, here was the fitness of children at a cohort level by class, by standard, by school, whichever way you want to do it, right? Once you have data for each child. And here's
what is fitness level? What do you measure for that?
Okay, great. So what we do, this was an interesting problem actually when we started out. We said, okay, first of all, the question, what do you measure, right? In sports, before you get into fitness. Now, I can't compare you who, let's say, play football to me, let's say, who plays badminton. How do I compare? There's no way to compare. And hence we said, let's use the more common framework of fitness. And in fitness, we use the normal stuff, aerobic capacity, anaerobic capacity, core muscles and upper body, lower body. That's the fitness side. And the skill side, we measure hand-eye coordination, balancing. So idea is that combination of these two gives positive sporting experience. If you don't have these two,
I don't know any schools which report these metrics from their PE class.
All the schools that work with us do.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's fascinating, actually. So you get a kind of a scorecard for each kid.
Yeah. I have data for almost 2.5 lakh kids longitudinally over the last 5 years. Over 10 years, we've been publishing annual health survey, which comes in the media saying, here is the slice of the fitness of India's kids as per our cohort.
Yeah.
Which are, let's say, normal school going kids, not athletes, not Khelo India, not Olympics.
Yeah, which actually, since you mentioned athletes, will you be able to identify that top 1-2% who can potentially become a next Sachin Tendulkar?
So let's break that up. Can I identify top 1-2% based on the parameters? Yes, because it's just a filter. Yes.
Yeah.
The next part of the question is a very big question. That will the 1-2% translate into the next Sachin Tendulkar has a bunch of other things. And we are working on that now. We in fact setting up a Ask Sportsvillage chatbot very soon, where we are saying just ask us, because what we found was that parents are struggling with what next. Right? Okay, you told me my child is good, bad, whatever. What next?
Yeah.
Which coach do I go to? What diet? What nutrition? What matches? Which trials? Where do I go? Can I get scholarship? There are a bunch of questions. And parents are willing to spend. They just need the right person to say, you know what, go spend here. This is right. And we as sports, we're trying to play that role now to say, okay, can we be almost like a sutradhar, almost like a companion?
Yeah.
Okay, some of this I can do, but some of this MD is better at doing. Why do you go talk to him?
Yeah.
Right. So that kind of stuff.
And how do you present all this? You have a kind of an app which the parents use to monitor their kids. And
yeah, good question. So the COVID context, before COVID, we were completely a B2B business. We had business of schools that we've spoken about. We also convinced brands to spend on getting kids to play. We convinced CSR donors to get kids to play, and we of course work with the government to get kids to play. So we have these four sources of money. So we've been primarily a B2B2C business.
Correct.
With COVID now, we are also adding the whole B2B, B2C, which is to say, okay, if I reach you through a school or a brand or a corporate or CSR, after I've done what you wanted to do with me, whether it's a tournament or an in-school program, here is the journey. So first part of that is a WhatsApp chatbot, which you're going to release very soon. Next part of that is an app.
Okay. So coming to an operational kind of a thing, I mean, you said, right, you had to, when you're talking to the Hyderabad-based school principal, you figured that you need to now hire a whole bunch of PE instructors. How is it now? I mean, every school whom you're supporting has a bunch of Sportsvillage PE instructors out there who work along with the school's PE instructors?
Yes, exactly. So pre-COVID, we are at a team strength of almost 2,000 people.
To support how many schools?
1,500.
2,000 to support 1,500.
Okay, out of 2,000, maybe 1,800 would be trainers.
Okay, so nearly 1:1.
Yeah.
Nearly 1:1. So every school would have an instructor of yours who's working across different classes and cohorts and all that. And what about the school's PE teacher? Just
we would enable them wherever
possible.
They are willing to be enabled, if I may. And otherwise, sometimes there would be two different pieces. We would run our program for junior class, and they would run whatever they're doing for the middle school. We try and find a way to work together.
So have you positioned yourself as an edtech company? Because that's a buzzword these days.
No, we are not.
Well,
answer is no.
The moment you do it, Byju's will acquire you, by the way.
Is that a good thing?
I don't know. I'm just telling you. They just go by keywords, I think. Oh, fascinating. Actually, somebody has, I think, asked a question. Hang on. Let me just read that out. Yeah. Are you able to retain your training team during COVID era since schools were shut? Good question.
Good question. Unfortunately, we could not retain the team that we could, but we retained a lot of them because of a few reasons. In hindsight, as I met somebody today, made an interesting point, and this is maybe larger point, MD, that in India, I think the way to do business is to do many things, because things change so quickly. Suddenly, one regulation will change. Suddenly, something will happen. That if you are a single trick pony, you could just get exposed. In our case, in hindsight, we were also not in hindsight, sorry, by serendipity almost. We had also had a CSR business where we used to convince corporates who are investing in education, not sports, in education, to improve education of a government or underprivileged children. We used to convince them to add our in-school program as a way to get more kids to, first of all, show up at school.
Yeah.
And second, to improve the efficacy of their, let's say, maths or science investment, because kids are more focused, more disciplined.
Of course.
Because they played. Yeah. Otherwise, you're doing all the spending, but the kids are not there. Right. So that continued during COVID. The government business, where we do two things with Gujarat government, we do in-school in Gujarat government schools, and we do vocational training programs in 600 or 500 odd schools across 8 states. That continued. So we were able to retain some part of the team. And with some schools, private schools, we also did live online classes like this. For the P sports program became a play at home program, where kids were doing the same class, same trainer, but through Zoom sessions.
Wow. Zoom session and play. That's a tough one, man. But anyway, what can one do? You have to just do it with whatever resources you have, right?
Yeah, I mean, COVID or no COVID, you said kids need to play. So
yeah, isn't nutrition an important thing in fitness as well? And how do you bring that about? Do you have any influence on that?
it's a good question. We found first of all, I agree. Obviously, it is a very important piece in a school context and kid context, and it's very important to remind you that we are from the kid context, not from adult context. In a kid context, there is a strong position that most moms have that I know what is the right thing to feed my child.
Yeah.
So it's a so it's almost like
you don't want to go there. Yeah.
So we kind of just stayed back a bit. I mean, we obviously recommend stuff, but we kind of just leave it out there. But there is definitely, when you go to next level, where beyond just, so broadly, when the three journeys we think kids are on, right? On the sports context. One, you can play for fun and therefore play for life. Just second is you play because you think you're good and there's a chance that you might want to play it seriously, professional or not professional, but you're serious about it. Third is you play for scholarships, which is kind of, and different people can be on the same journey across at different times on different sports, right? I could play cricket seriously, but play football for fun and so on, right? Now, these three journeys require very different support structures, and the parents' behavior changes. When kids go on to CS or scholarship, suddenly parents are very keen to understand about nutrition, trials, portfolio making, injury management. But on the fun side, where it is like, just go down and play, it is not, nutrition doesn't become that important.
Yeah. What about actually, you are in a great position to organize, what's the right word to use? Maybe tournaments, competitions, not tournaments, competition, because you've got access to 1,500 schools. I mean, that in itself could be a kind of an interesting way to get even more children involved. Do you think there's something in it?
Yeah, so you're right, and we did some stuff there. There are two parts to this competition stuff, family. One is let's call it the inter-school or performance-oriented competitions, right? Which happen, a few of them happen. By definition, out of 1,000 kids, 10 kids will show up, 20 kids will be the school team. Everybody else is obviously not in a school team in a particular sport. And you do a tournament and so on. That very often currently is a brand funded program, a boost, or somebody will fund a cricket tournament or something as per their brand objectives, which means also as per the timing they want and so on, right? So there is this brand driven competition funding. Correct. We always felt that should only be some, cherry on top. That can't be the way to because I can't keep waiting for a brand manager to suddenly say, here, I'll fund a tournament. So we tried the other way around, and it worked. What we did was, we said, instead of the top 10% of the kids, let's make a tournament format that anybody can make a team. Okay. So this we announced in PSBB in Chennai many years ago. We started it there. And we said, okay, the way to do this is, we said, anybody can make their own team. So you, MD, can make a team with 4 or 5 of your friends, and you register them. That's it. Friends could be same class, same other class, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think we did football in the beginning and basketball. Yeah. The lady announced, Durga ma'am, I think announced it, and within like 10 minutes, there are 500 kids outside her cabin.
Sorry, 500?
Kids outside her cabin.
Okay.
Right. And the point was that there was an inherent, there's a pent up need to experience the same competition that a school team experiences or Messi experiences, right? There is a match. So it was brilliant. I'm telling you, we had teams, and we did this across schools then. We call it the intra-school, Edisport Partner League, Sportsvillage Partner League now. Yeah. And no kidding, we've had the second worst team in the world play the third worst team in the world. But those guys were loving it.
Yeah.
They've never had the experience of celebrating after a goal or of having this camaraderie, right? Because they were never in any teams.
Yeah.
And that is the magic. So that is a paid model, which we think is far more sustainable because it's ground up, self-sustaining, as
So
against.
paid model means parents pay a little more for the
Yeah,
kids to
yeah,
take part in this. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
And
And we're
I think
now looking to
you're
build that.
targeting the right socioeconomic kind of background based schools as well. So where they can spend the extra, buck on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these numbers are not, I mean, they are like 100, $200 for a weekend tournament. It's not,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah. You're not
yeah.
breaking the bank for this. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got it. Now, let me extend it to adults. Do you think, look, the moment I think you cross 30, get very busy with work, corporate world, and so on, many people, even the best of sports people, kind of become couch potatoes. It's just the
Yeah.
nature of the beast. And is there any learning you can take and kind of recommend, to the corporate side of the world to get people out to play again?
So I have a theory there. And my theory is that most of the adults have not been taught the right fitness and the right skill for multiple sports the way they should have been in school.
Okay.
So they today, when they become an adult, they feel that they either don't have the fitness which they know about, or they're embarrassed about the skill level, so they don't set foot on a playground,
Mhm.
and that becomes a vicious cycle,
Sure. So they just stay away.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's either you don't want to make a fool of yourself, you don't want to expose that you don't know how to play basketball, you don't know how to catch a bad ball or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they stay away. What is required is to remind ourselves that all of us were kids, right? We're just grown up kids. I mean, just to remind ourselves, we're just grown up kids, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as kids, if you're willing to pick up the right fitness and skill,
Yeah.
if we whatever you pick up, and people have picked up golf, right? People, some of the most unsporting people I know have picked up golf.
Yeah.
Some of the most unsporting people I knew are today running super marathons.
Yeah.
So it's not possible. I mean, I know people, I'm sure you know a few who, if you knew at grad school, you were like, what, this guy? And suddenly
Yeah.
they are, so there is, so that positive sporting experience of early success,
Yeah.
some coach, some mentor, some group, let's keep going. And then suddenly you're on a roll,
Yeah.
can happen at any age.
Yeah.
I think people need to just relax a bit and be fine with making a fool of themselves on a playing field for the first few times.
Yeah.
And kids we used to do that. We didn't have a
Yeah.
problem with that. So I think the real missing piece is a generation of kids who are now adults have not had the right fitness skills. And what we are trying to do is to hopefully fix that when
Yeah.
these kids grow up.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
say, you know what, I can play.
Yeah. So how much coverage do you have now? Your 1,500 schools is what, across a few states, across the country?
Across the country, barring a couple of states, 250 odd locations. 1,500 was pre-COVID. Now we are at, including government, around 800, and now slowly starting to ramp up again.
Okay. So how far do you think you can go with this? I mean, is it, how big is it?
Well,
Can it be?
Well, there are 25,000 CBSE schools. There are 3,000 ICSE schools. By definition, CBSE, ICSE define a certain socioeconomic category because of the fee bracket.
Yeah.
So the problem really is not, in our mind, the market size. I know it sounds like an entrepreneur pitching for funding, but the problem really, for us, really the problem is to get access to the right school leaders through the parents or otherwise, to say, look, I need to have a program which is equal as part of education. But things are improving now. In the 10 years ago, I used to go out and say, why sports? Now the questions I get is how sports, not why sports.
Interesting. Yeah. You've been at it for nearly 18 years, you said, right? Just walk us through some of the biggest roadblocks you faced as an entrepreneur, Saumil, and how you overcame it. I mean, this is just amazing. 18 years, and I don't think the energy level has dropped one bit in you. What did you? I mean, this is a lesson for all of us, actually, to just stay with it. What were the kind of top 2 or 3 roadblocks you faced in this journey?
So I think finding the right model. I don't know, it's called a roadblock, but at every point, figuring out the right model to get kids to play was a huge challenge. And at every point, you think you had a model, right? We had an academy. We thought we had a model. Then we went to apartment complexes. We thought we had the model. At every point, my Excel sheet showed millions of rupees, and I was rich. Right? Then we had an app. Then we did cricket tickets for World Cup and so on. Right? So I think one of the biggest issues was, at what point do you say, you know what, this is not working, and what is now called pivot.
Yeah.
Right. So I've kind of pivoting constantly.
Yeah.
But this question of when do you think is the right time to pivot? When is it too early? When is it too late? And sometimes it's very difficult. And because you are the only person deciding, right? And everybody asks questions. That is one very difficult phase. The other was, and I think came out of a lot of goodwill. People, finally calling and saying, you know what, maybe there's no business in getting kids to play. Why don't you come back to the real world? And how do you handle the self-doubt? How do you handle that, saying, are you the only idiot around? And I have had, from the time Sportsvillage started, 2 kids growing up, so all the corresponding stuff also happens. So this question of, are you the only idiot around, was also one very big question.
All along, I mean, so, but I suppose over the last, how many years your model is kind of settled down? You've got the product market fit, as they call it.
Yeah, so I think EduSports was that. The reason EduSports is known a lot more than Sportsvillage, because EduSports was the program or the model that kind of just fit.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, as you know, MD, is serendipity and not strategy. And serendipity doesn't get enough credit for as much as it should. But I think that just made that difference. That just made that change. And for me,
and when did that happen? When did that happen, Saumil? I mean,
2008-9, after 5 years of Sportsvillage, 5-6 years.
Okay.
And that was one. And for me, I think, to your other question of staying the path, I think my previous venture had failed, which was remote tech support, before BPO happened. And in hindsight, I should just, we had business. I should just hung in there and waited for the BPO wave to happen. That's another story. But my learning was that whatever you do, if it solves a fundamental customer problem, then just hang in there. At some point, the market will come.
Yeah,
was my view. So I kept staying with it. And I think, I also feel that it's the juicy problem to solve. That it's easy. I don't mean to trivialize it, but it's easy to say, okay, I did not make as much money, or I did not get my opportunity cost, and I made an impact. That's in some easier problem to solve.
Yeah.
I am very keen to solve a problem to say, we made more than market returns and we solved the problem.
Right.
I think that's the juicy part of the problem.
Yeah. And that's what which will keep you motivated as well, right? I mean, your team, and what is the team like? I mean, obviously you founded this, you have co-founders, and how have you built up the team?
Yeah, team has also evolved. As Sportsvillage, there were 3 of us. The one person left within a year as it was not working out. Then Jitu and I continued. Then Jitu built the corporate sports business. That's the other side, other sort of source of money we got for getting kids to play. I built EduSports business. Then we raised some capital, and then when Gaja Capital, a private equity fund, invested in us, they put all of that together under Sportsvillage. And at each of these places, we had individual people coming together. We also had a few other ventures that didn't work out. We tried a Kerala Volleyball League in 2007-8. We tried technology, Mera Sport, social media sports in 2009. My problem, MD, was that we only had so much money, and when you don't even have a model, how do you even go and ask people for money when you also don't know what you're going to do? So what we ended up doing was because we didn't have the money as capital, we ended up creating equity as capital. So we created multiple entities so that we could attract more co-founders. And whatever worked, whatever didn't work, we had to kind of shut down and move on. And that kind of all came together as Sportsvillage today. So it's been interesting ride.
And of course, COVID you took a big hit because of COVID. I think your business reduced nearly by half, right? I mean, you said 1,500 to 800 and so on. Now, what do you see? I know every other month there's a new variant coming out and so on. So how do you see the the market, going forward? I mean, are you seeing people tending to ignore all these different messages coming out? Do you see business kind of, going forward from here?
So I think there is a short-term and a long-term answer to your question. In the short term, till this variant thing settles, vaccination, all that, and the short term could be a few months to another year, based on how things pan out, right? There, I think there is somewhat ambiguity. But in the long term, what COVID has done is to clearly place health at the center of everybody's attention, a lot more than it was earlier, right? And when you dig deeper into that question of health, especially for kids and immunity for kids, the answer is physical activity and play.
Absolutely.
Then you follow that rabbit hole and to say, okay, where do I get my child to play? There's no place around you. And that I can't, as a problem entrepreneur, I can't solve. I don't think any of us can solve that problem of urban development. Yeah. So only place a child can play is schools or sponsored events or somewhere else. And that's the place we are in. So we think that in the long run, there is a wave supporting a lot more consumption of play and sports and activities. And it's showing up today. Look at the sales of bicycles. Look at the sales at Decathlon. Look at the sales of athleisure. What it's telling you is that there is clearly a demand or need for people to at least feel healthier by wearing a sporty t-shirt. Play is not another question.
Yeah. No. Are parents able to get the message saying that there is a direct correlation between immunity and physical fitness? I mean, are they getting the message?
Yes, I think that has come in definitely. We are getting calls. A lot of other people are saying, how do I get my child to play? A lot of parents are worried about a lot more than they were earlier about the lack of physical activity, lack of outdoor exposure, and so on. So I think directionally at a category level, if you will, I think the whole category of play, fresh air, health, fitness, physical activity has got a boost. So as soon as it's safe, and look at our behavior today, right? All the good pubs which are open air are kind of packed.
Yeah,
it's showing. All our behaviors are showing.
Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah, that I think we are kind of reaching the end. We've spoken for nearly 45 minutes, wow. Saumil. So, it's fantastic. Actually, it's great to have this conversation. So thank you for joining us, Saumil. And I want to thank Freshworks for supporting all the events of this year for us, this being the last. We've done 12 this year. And this is the 25th event as well. Of CCUF since we started in July last year. Also want to take the opportunity to let folks know that our next event will be in January, and the theme is going to change a little bit. We are actually calling it Innovation Stories. So where the emphasis is a lot more on innovation around customer experience. And in fact, our first speaker for this new series in January is going to be Sabir Bhatia of Hotmail fame. Nice. So no better person to kick off a series in innovation, actually. So he'll be joining us last Thursday of January, and you'll receive email regarding this. So thank you once again, Saumil. Thank you once again, Renil and Renil's team for supporting us. With that, over to you, Renil.
Thank you.
Thank you, MD. Thank you, Saumil. I think we had the perfect end to our events over the years and the perfect ending speaker with Saumil. It's a very interesting fact that we're speaking about a child as the customer, right? Which we've not actually covered over the years. It's always a person that you intend to. So thank you, Saumil, for that. And thank you, MD. It's been a great association over the year. From my side and from Freshworks, we'd like to thank you for that. And we hope to be part of something next year.
Sure. Thank you all, and wish you all a very happy holiday and a wonderful new year.
Wish you all the same. Thank you.
Bye-bye.